want to see him one more time.
7 years ago, she ran away from him.
How is it that I'm feeling pity for him right now?
It's called Paradise Valley where we shot because it's like paradise for some months of the year, you know, and it could be called the opposite for other months of the year because the wind goes straight up the valley. And when you've already hit, you know, minus 20 degrees centigrade, you know, and then you've got the wind on top of it, then, you know, you're pretty hardcore. The people that are out there on horses, you know, dealing with the land and protecting their cattle and things, it's not so much a cattle place, it's more of a horse place, but they're tough. Yeah. And so, and that forms you. I think that forms you in terms of your reactions, your relationships within families, either very, very tight or you're very, very cold, you know. And I think that's the thing that we were trying to, as well as the beauty of bringing that space around, because it's a very simple film. Obviously, it's set around one house and it's set around basically 3 relationships. So if you've got a limitation in terms of you're just pushing for, if you like, you're just pushing for that, the intensity emotion between the people, and you've got a very simple narrative, then having the presence of the mountains around them suddenly becomes very important, partly because otherwise it would be very, very boring to watch, you know. It's
oh my Lord, come carry me home.
Every night I wake up and I think that can't be what happened.
Using the environment and using, hopefully, sensing the harshness of the environment. But then, you know, it's slightly difficult to deal with that because the harshness, you know, we set off with not a particularly winter-like film. And of course, we had a massive snowfall the first day. You know, the temperature dropped way below zero. It suddenly became a lot more complicated. I hate the cold, so it becomes a lot more complicated for me. But the film itself doesn't necessarily reflect that because, you know, people are still wearing normal clothes. We didn't want them in very, very heavy clothes. Yeah. So they sort of had to battle and try and ignore the fact that, you know, their breath was freezing and all of that stuff. But it's what comes across, of course, is that the landscape looks very, very beautiful. But you hope that somehow in the back of people's heads that we'll, you know, and we exploited that obviously, but that people would understand that these people are isolated, that the intensity that happens within that relationship with the family is probably extremely intense when you're very young because you're cut off from everything else. Your social life outside there, even though the film doesn't talk about it, is probably going to the church on a Sunday, you know, or, you know, one of your parents going off to the bar, but it's a limited life.
Nothing more will be added to his story.
Begging, please.
But yours is still unfolding.
Won't you release